Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Preet Banga, and I work with the Equity Institute as the Story and Climate Change intern. And I'm thrilled to welcome you all here today to the 2023 Nova Scotia Career and Employment Student Symposium. Our panel for this hour is on the theme Inclusive Workplaces and Employment, and we're excited to have three panelists with us today to speak about their work in this area. After some brief introductions, each panelist will have 20 minutes to present their work, and we will end the panel off with a combined Q&A session. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A button. Please feel free to submit a question using this function at any time throughout the panel, and we will ask the questions when we reach this part of the panel. Now, my co-moderator, Dhruv Patel, will do a land acknowledgement.
Thank you so much, Preet. Before we introduce our panelists, it is important for us to acknowledge that the Center of Employment Innovation and the Coady Institute operate on the ancestral unceded territory of Mi'kmaq, which holds a complex history of and continues to be impacted by exploitation, violence, and colonization. We acknowledge Mi'kmaq and Maliseet people as the original caretakers of this land and recognize the failure of colonial institutions and systems to maintain the treaties of peace and friendship that were intended to guide our presence here. We also acknowledge the historical presence and contributions of African Nova Scotians and persons of African descent, whose forced labor played a significant role in forming and foundations of this province, and whose own relationship with land has been complicated by the impacts of slavery and colonization. The labor of refugee and immigrant groups, as well, has been exploited towards the same end. Race and indigeneity has been used as tools to oppress and repress various communities across these lands. And the intentional and unintentional maintenance of otherness continues to cause harm and contribute to the grief and trauma of historically excluded groups. As an organization, we take responsibility for learning and seeking long-term transformations in our relationship with land and labor in our province. Now, I would request Preet to introduce our very first panelist. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhruv. Our first presenter today is Kyra Campbell, who's presenting on Inequity on Campus, Improving Menstrual Equity at Saint Vincent Xavier University. Kyra Campbell is an International Center for Women's Leadership intern at the Coady Institute, and in this role, they have been developing a policy proposal for menstrual equity and supporting other Coady initiatives. They have recently graduated with an honors degree in public policy and governance. A brief abstract for Kyra's research is as follows. In Nova Scotia, Mount Saint Vincent University is the only university that has a project for reaching menstrual equity on campus. StFX currently has no publicized plan to combat menstrual inequity. With the rising cost of living and the stress of being a student, menstrual equity is vital for equal learning and work opportunities on campus. Menstrual equity consists of equal and comprehensive access to menstrual products. This presentation will analyze the current gaps limiting menstrual equity at StFX and providing a policy proposal for menstrual equity on campus. Here you go, Kyra.
Thank you, Preet. Hi, everyone. So my name is Kyra, and I am presenting Flowing Forward in Improving Menstrual Equity at Saint FX University. So currently, Saint FX has no initiative to reach menstrual equity on campus. Individuals must pay for pads and tampons, and they're only available in a couple areas on campus, being Bloomfield and Coady, and most students don't know about these. So what I wanted to see was how we could get this to work in an equitable way. Just 1 second. So basically, menstrual equity encompasses comprehensive access to menstrual products and the right to reproductive health. Both are necessary for health of all people who menstruate. Unfortunately, many Canadians face obstacles in achieving menstrual equity due to financial limitations, inadequate access. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize my slides weren't up. 1 second. That's better. I'm so sorry. Let me start over. So, currently StFX has no initiative to reach menstrual equity on campus. Individuals must pay for pads and tampons, and they're only available in Bloomfield and Cody, and most students don't know about them. Due to the pressure of being a student mixed with increased stress caused by the rising cost of living and tuition costs, forgetting or being able to not afford products is a reality for university students. While other university campuses nationwide have chosen to create menstrual equity programs, Mount Saint Vincent University is the only one in Nova Scotia to do so. So this is what I'll be discussing today. Why menstrual equity? What is menstrual equity? I've used the pestle analysis that I learned in my time in the public policy program at StFX, and recommendations and next steps. So during my 4 years at StFX, I saw tuition costs rise, but not so much an increase in notable services. And as a student, and a student who menstruates and a student interested in gender equity and policy, there's an extra burden for those who menstruate and need those products. So for this project, I decided to look at academic literature on the political side of things and the way that Canada is going on menstrual equity. I looked at also about what products there are in the academic literature. I also looked at different universities because it's becoming a growing kind of concept to have menstrual equity on campuses across Canada. And I also looked at StFX's policies or lack thereof on different aspects of menstrual equity. But the big question is, what is menstrual equity? So menstrual equity encompasses comprehensive access to menstrual products and the right to reproductive health. So both are necessary for personal health and to combat social stigma. Unfortunately, many Canadians face obstacles in achieving menstrual equity due to financial limitations. Inadequate access to menstrual products are harmful for societal attitudes towards menstruation. The lack of access is closely connected to poverty, with youth, single mothers, and Indigenous peoples, among other racialized communities. Gender diverse individuals also face stigma, especially with gendered washrooms. So StFX's discrimination harassment policy outlines that Saint Francis Xavier University believes that all members of the university community have the right to study, work, and live in an environment that promotes equity. Yet with much of the university population not having access to these necessities, there is not equity on campus. Furthermore, with the University Strategic Plan 2023 to 2028, a Fabric We Weave Together portion focuses on values including sustainability and equity, diversity, and accessibility, EDIA. Within EDIA, the statement outlines we will cultivate a sense of belonging that supports the dignity, safety, and well-being of all faculty, staff, and students from historically and currently excluded groups. The document portion states, as stewards of the university, we will move forward to propose and enhance the social, cultural, environmental, and economic sustainability of our operations and practices, ensuring menstrual equity in an environmentally stable manner with an absolute necessity promote safety and well-being for all groups, especially those who are most vulnerable to menstrual poverty. So I did the pestle analysis as a way to conduct research on how to make a policy in the most holistic way possible. So pestle basically means political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental. All of these did not pertain to my project, such as technological, but I looked at the aspects of political, environmental, social, and economic as they pertain to a holistic menstrual equity policy. So with political, Canadian political momentum is in favor of menstrual equity and free menstrual products, and StFX should follow suit. In 2004, 3 private members' bills regarding menstrual equity, and specifically the tampon tax, have been introduced in the House of Commons. In 2015, an opposition motion to end the tampon tax was announced, with the federal government finally eliminating the tampon tax on May 28, 2015. The decision allowed for products necessary for menstruation to be exempt from the goods and services tax. In 2023, the federal government announced that it would be changing the Canada Labour Code to ensure access to free menstrual products in all federally regulated workplaces. The government of Canada stated that treating pads and tampons as basic needs will improve equity, reduce stigma, and create healthier, more inclusive workspaces. Next up was environmental, and I really wanted to look at this one because StFX does not really have an environmental policy, but we are in such an important area of climate change and the environment in our current time. So I thought it was essential to have this. There's no point in making a menstrual equity policy if we're still hurting the planet in the process. So sustainability becomes more important, and it's crucial that we do not commit harm. So if each menstruating person used approximately 32 menstrual products for each period, that leads to between 11,000 and 16,000 tampons and pads used in their lifetime. This works out to approximately 200 kilograms of tampons, pads, and applicators thrown away over a lifetime of only one menstruating person. Often the products thrown away are harmful to the environment, with average of 90% of a pad and 6% of a tampon being plastic. To combat the unsustainability of most menstrual products, the University of Ottawa has partnered with companies OntFlow and Joni. OntFlow creates 100% organic products, with both tampons and packaging being 100% biodegradable. Joni creates bamboo and cornstarch fiber pads and organic cotton tampons. At the University of New Brunswick, students have access to reusable menstrual products, including Diva cups and a variety of products from Isle, which is reusable pads, periods, underwear, and menstrual cups. Menstrual cups can be used for up to 12 hours, making them long-lasting and helpful for a day of having a full day on campus. An effective solution to menstrual equity must be sustainable. Next up was social. So menstruation is not solely something that women go through. All genders menstruate. However, there are only menstrual products at StFX in women and single stall washrooms. And you do have to pay 25 cents for those products. For a menstrual equity policy to be truly equitable, there should be either menstrual products available in male washrooms, or if possible, the introduction of central menstrual product pickup areas. So in 2018, Saint Vincent University ensured that students would no longer have to pay for menstrual products on campus. Instead of having menstrual products in bathrooms, the university chose to designate central locations in the building where menstrual products would be picked up. However, as the former Mount Saint Vincent University president pointed out, I wouldn't go ask somebody to pick up somebody for a paper towel or a napkin if I need to blow my nose. And I don't think we should need to ask somebody permission for a pad or a tampon either. Menstrual products should be seen no differently than toilet paper, and therefore they should be available in all washrooms. However, it's important to have them in other spaces as well, such as the Health and Counseling Center, in case a bathroom was to run out or an emergency were to arise. Currently, students can access free products in Cody West that are stocked by the Cody staff, and in Bloomfield, the Gender and Sexuality Advisor stocks products. However, these areas are not publicized anywhere for students to know that they are available. Canada has seen a change in social attitudes towards menstrual equity. In 2019, Plan International found that 81% of Canadians supported free menstrual products in areas like schools, workplaces, and libraries. Through social change within universities, students have taken on the responsibility of ensuring menstrual equity on the university campuses through pilot projects and initiatives such as UNB Menstrual Health Society. These initiatives, however, do not mean that the responsibility should be solely on the students to implement and uphold menstrual equity on campus. As previously stated, university students must not only deal with studies, but also often balancing jobs and dealing with the increased cost of living and rising tuition. Putting the responsibility on students to ensure menstrual equity on campus, it goes against the point of menstrual equity entirely. This does not mean that students should not have a role in menstrual equity, including running societies, clubs, applying for grants, and initiatives to promote menstrual equity. But the university that should be putting their money and that they're putting their money and trust in should create an equitable policy on campus that will provide the products and uphold the values of menstrual equity. Next up, which got me thinking about this project, was the economic factors of menstrual equity. So people should not be financially punished for their menstruation. Just like toilet paper, menstrual products are a necessity for managing normal bodily functions. Yet one is free on campus and one is not. In 2023, 53% of Canadian women feel menstrual products are expensive, with the percentage jumping to 88% for those aged 18 to 24. Expensive menstrual products combined with the rising cost of living and attending university, 25% of Canadian women have had to choose between purchasing menstrual products and purchasing other essentials such as food or paying for rent in the last year. And for women aged 18 to 34, which encompasses university age women, this jumps to 31%. So after all of these factors that would factor into a menstrual equity policy, my recommendation is a StFX menstrual equity pilot project. So upon analysis of all of these considerations, I strongly suggest that StFX University implement a menstrual equity pilot project, which would eventually evolve into an all-encompassing campus policy. The project will serve as a vital educational tool for students to understand the significance of menstrual equity and to locate necessary products on campus. Furthermore, it will enable the university to develop a feasible plan that can be extended to all areas of campus. To ensure maximum student awareness, it's imperative that students and staff collaborate to promote the menstrual products that are being provided on campus for free, whether this be through social media, through posters, through classes, because there are a couple areas already on campus and no one knows about them. So for this product to be successful, students and staff have to know where these free menstrual products are. Such a pilot project would have the above factors at the core of its creation. The sustainability of a menstrual program is crucial for the environment and students' social and economic well-being. With our society at a crucial point in environmental history, menstrual equity should not come at the expense of unsustainable period products adding to our landfills. A pilot project must be used to test and find sustainable distributors of pads, tampons, and other reusable products, including menstrual cups, and what works best for StFX students. Looking at other university menstrual programs can help find products that are successfully utilized on campuses. A pilot project will also allow the university to see how free products are utilized on campus, starting small, putting free menstrual products in dispensers in some of the male washrooms throughout campus, and switching all the other dispensers to free ones will allow the university to get a sense of how many products are being used and in what areas. Also, putting menstrual products in some of the central areas like the health center will allow the university to see if students utilize products in central pickup spots. To see how the project is progressing, interested students could help audit the washrooms and other areas so that the university knows how many products are being used and where. So next steps. So after I did all of this research to see what would be needed for a successful menstrual equity policy, it comes to the practical steps if this was to be implemented. So I met with Megan Fogarty, the Human Rights and Equity Advisor on campus, and we had a great discussion about what this could actually look like and what would need to be done. So one of the main issues is always that universities do not have the funding for extra projects. So I would first inquire with schools such as UNB or Mount Saint Vincent about costs. How much does this cost to run every year? I would also find out how the menstrual product and dispenser machines work, who owns them, and if they can be altered, meaning, like I said, you pay 25 cents for a pad or tampon right now. Can we take kind of those cranks out with the coins and just have them free? Do we need to change the machines entirely? How much would that cost? And then I would inquire with the StFX Students Union about applying for grants or taking on the role of funding the project. And the StFX Inn is being redone right now. with a different style of washrooms. So piloting projects in areas like that, along with male washrooms as well, is great to reduce gender-based violence in washrooms. I would also speak with the VP Finance and VP Students about implementing a campus-wide policy after the pilot project is completed. And that's all I have for now, so thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Kyra. That was an amazing presentation and such an important piece of work that you have done over the summer. Now, I would like to introduce Akuya Amankwapoku, whose presentation is supporting diverse youth in the workplace at or as collective impact for inclusive youth employment, a case study. A little bio about Akuya. Akuya Amankwapoku is a recent graduate from Saint Vincent University. She's working as a collective impact for youth, inclusive youth employment intern with this Center of Employment Innovation. In her role, she provides support for a workplace attachment program that focuses on creating meaningful employment opportunities for diverse youth. A little abstract about Akuya's presentation. The youth unemployment rate in Nova Scotia, which is 12.6%, remains unchanged and comprises of an overrepresentation of diverse communities. Intentional support ensures that youth not only overcome barriers to secure meaningful employment, but that they are also able to maintain employment long-term. Using the collective impact for inclusive youth employment initiative as a case study, various support for diverse youth in the workplace will be explored. This presentation will highlight examples of intentional support and evaluate their impact on the youth beneficiaries of the program. Over to you, Akuya.
Okay, thank you for that lovely introduction. Good morning, everyone. And as Drew mentioned, my name is Akuya, and for my project today, I'll be talking about supporting diverse youth in the workplace, CIIE, a case study. Oh. I'd like to thank Drew for the line acknowledgement made, and I also like to encourage us all to continue to strive to educate ourselves about the history, culture, and life of Indigenous peoples and working towards active reconciliation. For my presentation today, I'll first and foremost take you through a little bit about myself and my role this summer. We'll then talk about youth unemployment rates here in Canada and in Nova Scotia more specifically, looking at the population of diverse youth. We then look at why it is important to support diverse youth in the workplace and what those supports even look like. We then finish off the presentation looking at the CIIE initiative as an example of a program that has been created to help support diverse youth in the workplace. With that being said, who am I and what was my role this summer? My name is Akuya, as previously mentioned. I'm a recent grad from StFX, graduating with a degree in psychology and philosophy. And this summer, I had the opportunity to intern here at the Coady Institute at the Center for Employment Innovation as a collective impact for inclusive youth employment intern. Some of my major roles included conducting research through surveys and interviews to evaluate the CIIE initiative and its effectiveness, as well as supporting current engagement activities with both the youth participants of the program and the employer participants of the program, as well as engaging in a range of intern-based activities. Looking at the youth unemployment rate here in Canada and Nova Scotia, first and foremost, youth, that is those aged 15 to 24, tend to have the highest unemployment rates as compared to other age groups. In Canada, the youth unemployment rate stands at 10.7% as of May of 2023. And in Nova Scotia, it stands at 12.5% as of January 2023. As we can see, the unemployment rate for youth in Nova Scotia is a higher rate compared to the national average. And this shows that action is to be taken to help bring youth into employment here in Nova Scotia. With that being said, how does this relate to diverse youth? Well, we can look at this issue from the lens of intersectionality. But first and foremost, what is intersectionality? Intersectionality is a term that's been coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989, and it describes the way that multiple forms of inequality or disadvantage sometimes compound themselves. It is the merging of identities. For example, someone who identifies as a Black woman, like myself, for example, experiences multiple forms of inequality of being a Black person and inequality of being a woman. These two identities merging together create even more challenges for someone who identifies as a Black woman. In relation to diverse youth, as mentioned previously, youth, that is, youth tend to have highest unemployment rates compared to other age groups. Diverse people, that is, those who have a broad range of experiences relating to gender, sex, socioeconomic background, education, ethnicity, neurodiversity, and life experience, face a range of different challenges, such as discrimination and other forms of prejudice, language barriers, stereotyping, and systemic disadvantages. The overlapping of these two identities, that is, being a diverse person and being a youth, creates even more challenges for diverse youth in the workplace, and hence the need to support them. And supporting them doesn't just look like hiring them into the workplace, but it also looks like retaining them in the workplace through supports. With that being said, what are some of the barriers or challenges that diverse youth face in the workplace? Some of the barriers that diverse youth face in the workplace include not knowing where to start or not knowing how to look for a job. Some youth have expressed having no experience looking for work or not knowing how to navigate their way through the employment market to find jobs. Some also express not knowing where to start or even knowing which resource to use to help them look for jobs. Additionally, there may be a mismatch between employers and job seekers. Employers may not know how to promote their job applications or job positions, or they might have posted them and not have a lot of uptake. But either way, they might be finding a hard time in attracting job seekers. Lack of mentorship. Mentorship is essential and helpful when it comes to providing support and guidance through transitional phases in one's life, whether that be personal or professional. And mentorship has been shown through research to benefit both the employer or the mentor and the mentee. For the employer or the mentor, they have satisfaction, career satisfaction, and increased workplace commitment. And for the mentee, they experience rapid advancement or promotions, improved well-being, reduced stress, guidance, and support. However, many diverse youth express how they lack mentorship in their lives when it comes to finding employment and retaining employment. Additionally, they also express lacking support networks, having people who can help them navigate their way through the employment market. Many youth also express experiencing bias and discrimination in hiring and workplace practices. Many feel as though that they don't belong to the hiring organization, and that's usually tied to their experience of systematic discrimination. Many youth also feel as though that they've been discriminated against because of either their age or their appearance. And lastly, research shows that unemployment rates is higher for racialized youth. Additionally, diverse youth express experiencing transportation challenges. Sometimes the money and time spent on transportation to get to a job far outweighs the compensation from the money made from a shift or from your paycheck. And that's usually heightened for those who live in rural areas where transportation might be even more difficult to come by. In addition to these barriers, diverse youth face a range of different challenges as well. And these include lack of needed skills or education. Some youth express not having the necessary education or skills that they need to both access a job and retain a job, and therefore they're less likely to apply for these jobs. Similarly speaking, many youth express lacking interpersonal skills or confidence. They express not feeling unprepared or not being able to manage relationships with their coworkers, the supervisors, or even customers. Some diverse youth also have childcare responsibilities. However, childcare is expensive and accessing childcare can be also difficult to access. Lastly, some youth experience health conditions or disabilities, such as cognitive challenges, mental health challenges, behavioral challenges, or physical disabilities. And all these pose a challenge for youth when it comes to both accessing jobs and also to retaining jobs. As we can see, diverse youth have a range of different challenges and barriers when it comes to the workplace. But how exactly can we go about supporting these youth in the workplace? Looking at supports available for youth, these are a list of supports that can be put in place in the workplace to support diverse youth. The first one being mentorship. As mentioned earlier, mentorship helps with guidance and direction and support as well. Not only that, but mentorship benefits both the mentor and the mentee. Therefore, providing mentorship for diverse youth will be essential in having someone who is there for them, who they can talk to, get advice from, and to get support and direction. Providing ways in which diverse youth can also engage in different activities is essential. Creating opportunities for diverse youth to engage in a range of different meaningful projects outside of the regular roles is another way to help support them through enhancing both their professional and personal development. Creating opportunities also for young employees and diverse youth to develop skills is another way in which they can be supported in the workplace. Also too, offering childcare and assisting with access to childcare benefits is another way in which diverse youth can be supported in the workplace, especially those who have childcare responsibilities. And lastly, having employment centers and agencies work closely together to support youth into employment is another way in which diverse youth can be supported in the workplace. With that being said, let's take a look at the CWIYE initiative as an example of a program that has been created with the intent of supporting diverse youth into employment and whilst they also are in spaces of employment. So what is the CWIYE? The CWIYE is the Collective Impact for Inclusive Youth Employment Initiative. It is a collaboration between the Center for Employment Innovation, the Government of Nova Scotia, and other community and industry partners. This initiative is a workplace attachment program with a focus on creating meaningful employment opportunities for underrepresented youth, including those who are identified as being Indigenous, African Nova Scotians, racially visible individuals, Nova Scotians on employment support and income assistance, and persons with a disability. This initiative focuses on creating new meaningful employment opportunities for underrepresented youth here in Nova Scotia and across the province of Nova Scotia, whilst also creating a space for these youth to be present in the community as they develop their leadership skills and workforce capacity. The project incorporates best practices in long-term labor force attachment that enables people to access training and for employers to access wage incentives. The program is currently ongoing and currently supports 20 young people aged 18 to 34 from diverse backgrounds, including those who identify as belonging to an equity deserving group, those who identify as Indigenous, and those who identify as having a disability. The CWIYE is made up of multiple different components, which have all been created with the intent of providing support for diverse youth in the workplace. Let's take a look more closely as to what these components entail. The components that make up the CWIYE initiative include communities of learning sessions, mentorship, wraparound supports, and community engagement. For the CEI, communities of learning are transformative places where individuals who may share common goals, practices, visions, or ideas can gather together to learn, share, and discuss a particular topic. In relation to this initiative specifically, communities of learning for the youth participants are formal spaces for all those who are participating in the program to come together, to build relationships, share one another, connect, and share their experiences about their experience in the workplace. It is a formal space for them to connect with one another and to have a shared space of learning, dialogue, and peer support. These sessions occur once every 2 months for an hour and a half, and through these sessions, youth can also find time to get education and training on a range of different skills that help with capacity building. Some of the topics discussed in these sessions thus far include knowing your rights, financial literacy, burnout, and so much more. The aim of these sessions is to provide a place where the youth can come together to support one another by sharing their experiences and connecting with one another. And this is in relation to their place of work. For the employers, they receive what is known as Employer Learning Series. These are sessions that are hosted by the CEI to provide opportunities to help equip employers to be able to create inclusive workspaces for diverse youth. Supporting diverse youth is not just about supporting the individual themselves, but also to supporting the workplace that they will be working in, ensuring that it's inclusive and welcoming to them. And hence the Employer Learning Series. These sessions occur once every 3 months virtually for about 2 hours, and they involve content experts coming in from various different backgrounds, coming in to provide training for employers to help equip them to have inclusive workspaces and to help support diverse youth in their workplace. Some of these sessions include anti-oppressive practices, trauma awareness or sensitivity training. Wraparound mentorship is another component of the CWIYE. This component, as mentioned earlier, provides guidance and support for youth, and through the youth-centered mentorship approach the CEI has come up with, this has allowed youth and their mentors to both co-define the focus of the relationship, as well as have access to both internal or external means of mentorship. Wraparound supports are ongoing supports that help the youth participants navigate their way through their workplace. These can look like providing resources or equipment for their place of work, such as work boots or headsets or electronics, laptops, stand-up desks to work from home, or even support with childcare. These supports come in various different forms and from various different sources, and they can include supports from their supervisors at their workplace, the proponents, that is, the employment centers which help them in the program, a member of the CWIYE who has one-on-one check-ins with these youth to find out if they have any challenges in their workplace, questions about the program, and so much more, as well as support from their mentors. The last component of the CWIYE is community engagement. Now, this piece kind of ties in with the engagement piece that I previously mentioned about providing opportunities for the youth to engage in meaningful projects that span outside their regular roles. And that's what the community engagement piece does. Through this piece, the youth works together with their employer to come up with an engagement plan for their community that's relevant to their work. They must come up with an event, organize it, and execute it. By so doing, they gain leadership skills and capacity in leadership, as well as the event benefiting the community and the employer. Some examples of events that youth have come up with so far have included a community event for families that support individuals with disabilities, and a community event for kids who work at a childcare center that the youth works at. As we can see, all these different components tie in with the different needs of supports that can be put in place for diverse youth in the workplace, such as mentorship, supports, skill development, sense of belonging, engagement, support to childcare, and employment centers coming together to work to help bring youth into employment. But how exactly have these components helped benefit diverse youth in the workplace? How has this initiative in this program benefited diverse youth in the workplace? Let's take a look at that. As mentioned earlier, the program is currently still ongoing, and therefore evaluation of the program is also still ongoing. However, some interviews have been conducted so far to understand participants' experiences with some of the different components of the program. Themes based on the responses have been drawn out to identify what exactly participants' experiences have been from this program. So the first component has been evaluated is the communities of learning component. This component, youth have expressed how through these sessions, they found a shared space for them to connect. Youth have expressed that through communities of learning sessions, they've had a shared space to connect that's enabled them to express what they're going through in their place of work and going through in their employment, as well as being able to share one another what they're struggling with. And by so doing, being able to connect and share, they don't feel alone. Some have also expressed that through these sessions, they've been able to get some skills and develop some skills. Skills such as learning how to speak up for themselves and advocate for themselves. Skills such as being able to become more open to discuss challenges or struggles that they'd be facing, as well as the ability to be able to improve and able to vocalize oneself even better. Youth have also expressed that through these sessions, they've been able to gain some knowledge. Through the different sessions and teachings that have been happening, they've been able to gain the opportunity to learn new concepts and educate themselves on a range of different topics and bring awareness to certain topics and issues, such as the topic of intersectionality. And lastly, youth have expressed how through these sessions, they felt comfortable to connect with one another and to share and to participate. However, some have expressed not feeling comfortable to express their opinions when they don't really know much about the topic that's being taught. So instead, they just sit and listen and educate themselves and bring awareness and learn to bring awareness to the topic. In spite of youth expressing having this space and having an opportunity to have a shared space to connect, gain some skill development, have some knowledge cultivation, and feel comfortable to participate, some have expressed how these sessions have not benefited them the way they thought it would benefit them. Looking at the next component of mentorship, youth have expressed how mentorship has been both helpful and important to them. Some have expressed how it's been important to have someone who's there for them, who cares, who they can talk to, who can listen to them, who's not their boss or their coworker. Youth express how the mentors do a good job in reaching out, scheduling time to meet, offering support to the different projects or initiatives that they're carrying out, as well as providing a listening ear and words of encouragement during difficult times. Youth have also expressed how through mentorship, the mentors have provided advice and feedback on certain things that is going on in their professional life, whether that be going to a new career field or just ideas about ways in which the workplace works. Youth also have expressed how mentorship requires commitment. Mentorship requires one to be committed to their mentor. And in order to experience the full benefits of mentorship, they must be committed to their mentor in terms of time commitment, being able to maintain contact, as well as being able to step outside of the comfort zone to express what it is that they're going through or the challenges it is that they're having. Not only that, but youth have expressed how mentorship should look differently for different people. It should come in alternate ways with different modes of mentorship. Not everyone might feel comfortable expressing what they're going through to somebody that they're not as familiar with at the time. So therefore, providing ways in which people can have access to mentorship that might look differently for them based on their needs is important going forward. The last component that has been evaluated thus far is wraparound supports. And with this component, individuals have expressed how the wraparound supports have provided additional supports for them, such as some youth have received funding to go back to school to take administrative courses, which has helped them in the place of work. Through taking those administrative courses, they're able to help them in the place of work currently and in the times to come. Some have also received equipment to work, such as headsets or laptops or stand-up desks to be able to work from home and to work comfortably from home. Some have also received a reimbursement from childcare, which has been helpful to them and quote unquote has been paramount and amazing. Through this reimbursement of childcare, the funds that usually would have been spent on childcare have been able to allocate it to other areas of their personal life, which has been helpful for the youth. Not only that, but youth have expressed how wraparound supports have helped should be made more known and accessible to the youth in terms of what specifically is available to the youth for wraparound supports. As we can see, some of these supports have been beneficial to the participants, but some have not been. It is therefore important to know that not all supports that have been put in place will be beneficial to diverse youth. It is essential to figure out what exactly will be pertaining to each youth and what supports would they need specifically. Not all of them will be relevant and not all of them will be helpful for all youth, but these are just some of the supports that have been put in place that have been beneficial thus far. To conclude, supporting diverse youth is important in the workplace is very important. And these supports can look like different ways. And as previously mentioned, they can also be different supports for different youth. Some might benefit more from this one, from mentorship. Some might benefit more from communities of learning, for example. But all in all, creating a more inclusive workspace requires intentionality. It's not just about hiring diverse youth into the workplace. It's also about retaining them. And not just that, it's not just about supporting the youth themselves, but also to the workplace in which they are in, ensuring that those workplaces are inclusive and welcoming to diverse peoples, and essentially to all people. Lastly, the CWRE is an example of a program that has been created to help support diverse youth in the workplace here in Nova Scotia. This program is a 2-year program and therefore a temporary program, but it is thus far done a good job in showing how intentional practices can look like in action and how they can be beneficial to diverse youth. This program is an example of what intentional practices look like. And I think we can all take something from this as the way in which we can support diverse youth in the workplace, either in our own personal lives, in our place of work as employees, or in our organization as employers. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Akuya, for that amazing presentation. And now we'll move on to our Q&A section. And again, I want to thank Kyra and Akuya, both of our panelists, for your incredible work and presentations. And we will have about 30 minutes for this part of our panel where you are invited to ask questions and our panelists would answer them. We'll do our best to answer all the questions. We have enough time, so please feel free to ask questions. And to guide where to ask questions, you can find a Q&A function to submit the questions and I'll ask them in order as they're received. So you would be able to find the Q&A section next to participants section. It is in between chat and participant section. If you're trying to find that, you can type your question there and I will try to ask the questions in order and then our panelists will jump in to answer them. Please let me know if you need any help with that. Thank you. So again, if you are trying to ask questions, you can find the Q&A section next to the participant section, and there is right to participant section and left to chat section on your bottom bar of Zoom. You can go and put your answer, question there, and I'll ask them as they are. Okay. So we have first question. Thank you so much for the question. And this question is for Kyra. Did you find that you had interest from StFX in exploring the menstrual equity further? What would you recommend as advocacy strategies for students and staff?
Thank you for the question. So unfortunately, due to it being August, a lot of the administration is quite busy. So I was not able to discuss with any of them at this time. But like I said, I spoke to the Human Rights and Equity Advisor, Megan Fogarty, who was really great in giving practical ideas about applying for grants for these things. There's great organizations such as Oxfam or Action Canada that would provide funding for something like this. And then Megan also let me know that our current StFX president is really interested in reducing sexual violence on campus. And with menstruating for non-women being so stigmatized, having safe, free products in male washrooms that can be easily accessed will hopefully reduce stigma and sexual violence in washrooms. So hopefully going forward, that could be kind of an angle that we can look at this through. When it comes to advocacy strategies, obviously be persistent. A lot of times money is usually the main issue. Funding partners. Oxfam is good, and Action Canada doesn't kind of do the funding itself, but it works with a lot of groups who have funding. So if you were to reach out to Action Canada and say, I have this project, do you know any funding through the Government of Canada or Oxfam? Then they might have some. There's probably a couple others I can't think of off the top of my head that I have as well. But I can always put my email probably in the chat maybe, or maybe someone else can, and I would be happy to send them along. So yes, advocacy, sorry. Strategies, be persistent, go to as many people as you can. I think if you're doing something human rights based such as this, health and equity advisors, sexual diversity advisors are great places to start to see if there's even a possibility for interest in a place like a university. Sometimes there's not an appetite for something like that at the time. Sometimes there's not funding. But there'll usually be people who are very straightforward with you if a place like the administration would even consider it. I can't really speak kind of to other areas, but I would definitely say around something human rights based like this, start with someone who's kind of outside of the main administration a bit to gauge it. And then when you have a more fleshed out project, then go to the administration and say, this is what I have. What are your issues that I can easily address? So I would say that would be the main strategy to go with. Thank you for the question.
Alrighty, so we have our next question, and this is for Akuya. So when conducting your research and analyzing the responses, was there anything that was unexpected in the results?
Thank you for that question. When conducting the research or the interviews, there wasn't necessarily anything that was unexpected because we're just kind of going in with the mindset of understanding the participants' experiences and what they experienced through the program and how best the program maybe suited them or did not. So I think there wasn't anything unexpected, but it was really interesting to see how not every component of the program benefited all participants. Some youth benefited more from the mentorship and wraparound supports. Some benefited more from community engagement. Some benefited more from the COLs, but not every component was beneficial to all participants. And that kind of speaks to everyone as individuals having their own preferences of what will support them better or not. So I think it wasn't necessarily unexpected, but it was very interesting.
Thank you so much, Akuya, for that answer. All right, we have one more question for Akuya again. So the question is, thank you so much for that thoughtful presentation. And the question is, could you elaborate on what you feel that mentorship should look like? Employer-driven, employee-driven, but supported by employer? How would you suggest mentorship can be most meaningful? So I would like to frame the question again, and the person who is asking question can correct me if I'm going in wrong direction. I feel that there are like 3 parts to this question. So the question is, could you elaborate on what you feel that mentorship should look like? First, should it be employer driven? Second, should it be employer driven but supported by the employer? And finally, how would you suggest mentoring or mentorship can be most meaningful?
Thank you for that question. As mentioned previously, mentorship is very important, providing guidance and support for youth and just people in general. And the CEI came up with a youth-centered mentorship approach. And through that approach, it allowed both the mentors and the mentees to work together to co-define the relationship. So it isn't just employee-driven or just, participant-driven. It's both parties coming together to define how mentorship would look like for them. And also too, with this program, with the CEI initiative, they kind of have almost like a speed dating for the mentorship. So those bunch of different mentors which are available to the youth, and they got to go virtually in different spaces to interact with them and see who they worked best with and who they had a better connection or rapport with. And based on that experience of kind of talking to other a lot of different mentors for short periods of time, they could figure out who they feel like they connected better with, who was giving, better rapport with, and through that they then became committed to a mentor. So I think just having that opportunity to have both parties come together to work together to bring about mentorship, and not just one person saying, hey, I'll be your mentor, or hey, be my mentor. It's both parties coming together to co-define the focus of their relationship. And the way in which I can suggest mentorship can be most meaningful is by first find that relationship together. So you both understand, okay, this is what I'm providing for you, is what I want, I want to get out of mentorship, and defining it together. Open communication and consistent communication. Some of the youth expressed how mentorship requires commitment, and not all times were they able to commit fully to their mentor by always meeting regularly or consistently. And because of that, they weren't able to fully get the benefits that mentorship could have given them. So I think being committed is a very important thing, is being committed and, constantly meeting up with your mentor, whether that's once a week, twice a week, whatever that looks like for you, but being consistent with those interactions will be very helpful in helping it being meaningful, because that mentor is always there for you, providing support for you. So I think that's kind of how mentorship can be beneficial and meaningful, but also too, you can go about doing mentorship.
Thank you so much for that answer, Akuya. And thank you so much, everybody, for asking questions. I want to remind again, you can put your questions in the Q&A section, and we'll ask them as they are asked, and our panelists would try their best to answer them. Thank you. Seeing no questions. Okay. Okay, I have one more question, and that is totally fine. And the question is, what was the biggest challenge you faced with your research work? And I think Akuya or Kyra, one of you or both of you can answer this question. The question is again, what was the biggest challenge you faced with your research work?
I'm happy to go first.
Sure.
So I would say the biggest challenge I faced was that I had to lay a lot of the groundwork for the policy kind of myself. There's not a lot of academic work on menstrual equity in Canada, and looking at something so specific, like a specific university campus like StFX, you can only really go off of, I mean, obviously you can compare with other menstrual equity projects at other universities, but with StFX not having anything at all, it's great because you can kind of shape it however you want, but it's also really difficult because you don't have a baseline to start from. Like, not only did they not have a menstrual equity policy of any sort, they also did not have an environmental policy, and that was a big aspect of what I was looking at. So just trying to see how realistic I could actually be when looking at these factors. And that's why I chose to start with a pilot project, because there isn't a lot to go off of. We don't know what the demand would be in washrooms all across campus. We don't know what the demand would be for gender diverse individuals. There's a lot of unknowns. So I would say definitely just trying to take aspects from the limited literature and other universities and trying to put them in a StFX context with no base was probably the most difficult. But going forward, if I were to actually implement this, I think I do have a bit of a good base now after speaking with Megan, who was super helpful to see what could actually be done regarding funding and kind of the more practical parts on campus.
Thank you so much, Kyra. And Akuya, would you like to go for the same question?
Yes. So I'll say for me, the most challenging part of the research was getting participants to engage with like the interviews. So we did conduct interviews, as I mentioned previously, to hear about their experiences with the program and the different components. But it definitely took some time to get the youth participants to pick an interview time and to interview with us. And so it definitely made it challenging towards the end, getting ready for the symposium, conducting the interviews not long before the symposium and having to analyze them and put them in the presentation. So I think that definitely was a challenging part for me, is just getting people to be part of the interview and share their thoughts and experiences, and also share them in more depth so we can actually pull something from that and find the best way to either amend the program before it ends or for future endeavors as well.
Thank you so much, Akuya. And you can still keep asking the questions. I think we'll take one or two more, respecting the time. Thank you so much, Kyra and Akuya, for answering the questions eloquently. Already, I don't see any questions coming, so I would like to hand over to Pete for closing our symposium.
All right, so that concludes our panel on inclusive workplaces and employment today. Thank you all for joining us, and another big thank you to the amazing panelists. You each have so much knowledge to share, and I think I can speak for all of us in saying we have learned a lot today. For our audience, if you've enjoyed this panel, we have more panels coming up as part of the 2023 Nova Scotia Career and Employment Student Symposium. This afternoon at 2:45 AST, we have the Inclusive Education and Institutions panel with 3 presentations lined up. And coming up tomorrow, we have the Youth Engagement panel, which is starting at 10:30 AST, and the second panel in the afternoon titled Community-Led Development at 1:30 AST. So stay tuned and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you again and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you so much, everybody.